The audio, okay, there should now be audio. And if you people can't see the screen or something connecting remotely, send a chat message and it will pop up on my screen and I will hopefully notice. Now let's get rid of some of this. All right. And here, all right. And I think we're ready to go. Good. So let me pass out my other handout, which is the grading policy. Not very exciting, as is considered required to give this. And, there we go. All right. And if you come to add, there's room for everybody. I emailed out add codes to everybody who was on the waiting list and people who aren't on. What are you looking for? The handouts, yeah, you get one of these grading policies, that's all. Good. All right. And, all right. So let me just describe what you're getting into here. And then I've just got some beginning stuff today, nothing that contributes directly to what appears on tests and such. All right. So this is a hacking class. I started doing this maybe 10 years ago now. We were one of the first colleges to do this, to teach people how to attack others. So, of course, you have to not do this and don't commit crimes because nothing makes it legal, but you can certainly practice to figure out how security works and practice on your own test systems, and that's what we do. And now this is now understood to be the correct way to teach security. Until about 10 years ago, the security business felt like it was immoral to teach people how to attack, and we should teach people only how to defend. And the military could have told us what happens if you have soldiers and you don't teach them how to fight. And the same thing happened to us, and that's part of how we ended up in the current ridiculous situation that the internet is incredibly insecure. I dump every day of people's passwords, credit card numbers, hacking the elections, hacking the banks, hacking everybody all the time. And it's a boom time for us because we are so very, very bad at our jobs that everybody is very insecure and they have to hire more and more security people all the time because they're not able to save them. And so it is a good time to get a job, but, and the basic fundamental fact is that attack is much easier than defense on the internet. So actually all the amateurs start by learning to attack, and the professionals learn to defend, which is much harder, and our program is structured the same way. You start by learning attack, and defense is a more advanced topic. That's the way it really is. Yeah?
Yeah, isn't like HTTPS kind of secure because it's like this?
Yes, that's a very good point, and we'll go into that quite a bit. HTTPS is much better than HTTP. It's not. There's nothing that's perfect, but in fact, what has happened is HTTP without encryption is so dangerous that now browsers will mark every site as insecure, even if you're not logging in, and that is what they should do, because the old attack was, which you'll do in some of the projects, I think, is to steal passwords off the wire if they're transmitted without encryption. But if you connect to a site over HTTP, it's actually much worse than that, because I can send you to a fake site and you have no way to know that. And I can even if you're going to the genuine site, I can just intercept the traffic and add extra code to the page from the network, and you'll never know that happened. So I can just add JavaScript and poison the page with malware, even without infecting the server, just by sitting next to you in a wireless network or connecting anywhere between you and that server. So it is just considered unsanitary and unwise to use HTTP at all these days. However, companies are just reluctant to upgrade to HTTPS, even though for the last 3 or 4 years that has been free. There have been several free services to take you up to HTTPS. Cloudflare will do it for free, and the EFF has an encryption. Let's Encrypt will give you a free certificate, but still, companies would have to spend some time developing stuff and upgrading stuff, and many of them just haven't bothered. But now that browsers are going to flag every unencrypted site as unsafe, that will probably put pressure on them to upgrade. But it's a very good point, and that is something we're going to see a lot of. People use dangerous protocols on the internet all the time. Protocols that are 30 years out of date, protocols with enormous problems, old versions of products all the time. And this is frustrating to security professionals when they start, but if you think about it, it's no different than any other part of life. Americans eat too much, don't exercise, the doctor tells you to do that, you just don't do it, then you get sick and they say, well, you're getting sick because you didn't do what you knew you should have done. It's no different than any other part of life. There's what you should do, And most people don't really do it because they just can't be bothered, and security is the same. But the particular bad thing about security is even if you really want to secure your stuff and you have a lot of money and resources like Google and the US military, you still can't do it very well because the enemies are so powerful and attack is so favored. So anyway, we will, of course, that's also true in the real world. If you want to hide from physical attack, so nobody will shoot you and you're like the president has to hide behind the Secret Service and guards and everything, and still many of our presidents get shot and so on. So it's the same. This is why security is not a simple thing. It is a balancing act, and you have to do threat modeling. You have to figure out what threats you're worried about, and then figure out which of those threats you can afford to stop and just accept the rest. And the same things you've been doing it all your life in the physical world, in the financial world, wherever you put your money, it might get stolen, the bank might steal it. Somebody might break in your house, somebody might steal your car. And, you know, some people, when they first hear about this, they get all paranoid. But the fact is, all of life is risky. And no matter what you do, after a while, you get old and die, so you lose. So you can't get the risk down to zero ever. And you just have to either thoughtlessly do risky things and be surprised when you get hurt, or if you get some training and think this through, you can make more careful decisions about which risks you want to take. And that's what security professionals do. That's risk analysis. Instead of just doing foolish things without even knowing how dangerous they are, you learn which things are dangerous and you make careful choices about which things you want to do and which things you want to avoid doing. Anyway, so we're going to, there's textbook, which is quite popular with students, and we've got a lot of hands-on projects here. So we'll talk about Linux and Windows, web applications, operating systems, and vulnerable services of various kinds, and attack them and defend them. And so we'll go through that textbook. There's a online course system, Canvas. This is not the same as City College Canvas. I use my own, a different server, which gives me more privileges to run the API so I can have automatic grading of the project, which I have this semester. So you should have received an invitation in your City College email. If you didn't, then send an email requesting an invitation to CNIT.123. I'll put it up here. All things related to your class grade and such should go here, CNIT.123@gmail. I have a personal email account too, but it tends to get all full of stuff and I tend to miss things. This is actually opened by an efficient grader to make sure that everybody gets proper attention. So, yeah.
It's asking for a join code.
Yes. Well, if you're in City College, you should let me make the account. Wait till you get an invitation, because I mark your name with an underscore so we can separate it from the people that are not at City College in the course. So, so don't create your own account with the join code. Did you get an invitation?
I got an email from you, but I didn't see anything about.
All right. Did you pre-register for the class?
Yes.
Okay. Well, everyone should have gotten an email. All right. Well, I'll check into that after class. Let me see if some reason. Did anybody get an email from me inviting you to Canvas? Did anybody successfully join Canvas? Okay. So some people can. Good. So I didn't somehow fail to send them all out. So after class, I'll try to solve the load and see what happened to you. Often individual bad things happen. But anyway, all right. That's good. So let's see. Here's so there's a timetable for things. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin and start you off with lockpicking. And then next week starts quizzes being due and projects being due in a few weeks, although there's no punishment for anything being late until the 13th because people are still adding. Anyway, the projects all come in automatically. You go to my web, everything goes to this website, samsclass.info. Don't start from Canvas, start from here, because I made my class this way before there were such systems as Canvas, and I have not put everything inside Canvas. The only thing Canvas is for is taking quizzes and recording your grades. So if you go to samsclass.info here, you'll see CNIT 123 here. So you click on that, and here are the projects. I'm going to add a few more, but the projects are here. This one here, you start a Kali virtual machine. You're going to need a couple virtual machines to do most of the project. Kali is the standard for American pen testers, and that's what we're using. And so once you do all these steps to get your machine working, there's a command you execute to get something to type in here to prove it. You just put in the right answer to this question, and it will put points in your Canvas. So that's how the scores are graded. It's the same as capture the flag contests. If you haven't done them, you will learn about them in this class. Anyway, all right. And you do not have to physically come to class. You can connect to a live stream. We are using Zoom, which is free software here. The videos will also be on YouTube after class, so you can watch them anytime. You can even ignore them completely and just read the textbook. If you don't like the lecture, that's fine. There's a quiz, which is based on the chapter, and the homework is just based on following the instructions there and figuring out how to hack into things. And if you do all that, you get your points. Attendance does not contribute anything to your grade particularly, and not attending doesn't affect it. All I care about is you learn this stuff. Yeah. Not for this class. For this class, 32 or 64-bit versions are fine. For my exploit development class, you need a 32-bit version. In fact, for this class, the 64-bit is slightly better, although it's probably okay for this class. Metasploit works better in the 64-bit version. But Metasploit is, in fact, very buggy in every version. You'll get used to this with hacking tools. Hacking tools are very unprofessional, and they're constantly changing, so they never get up to what Microsoft would even call a beta version. They fail a lot. So you have to learn a lot of troubleshooting. And so, in fact, a whole lot of what you really learn by doing real hands-on project is troubleshooting. Very often, the steps don't work. Your network connection doesn't work. The commands fail for strange reasons, and you have to expect to do troubleshooting. So get used to Googling error messages, trying to figure things out, asking people for help. This is the way of the world. And so I might as well mention there's a sort of covert thing here. You might think you're learning the official topic of the course, but what you're really learning is improvising and troubleshooting, because that's what you're really going to do on the job. Whatever you learn in class is not what you're going to do on the job. There will be something new invented. And what you're really practicing is trying to get a general basis of experience. So when you hit a problem, which in this business is about 50 times a day, you try to do something that ought to work and it just doesn't work for no good reason. And you have to have had this happen enough that you no longer panic, but you figure out how to find things out. This is the way of the world. I think it's because of Moore's law. Computers keep changing so fast that nothing ever gets finished and polished. I know. I drive a 20-year-old car, so every time I go to a convention and rent a car, I have to stop and Google how to operate my car. Cars have become baffling. I just had one a couple of weeks ago. I drove it off the lot. It was fine. Immediately turned on a yellow light and started beep, beep, beeping at me. And so I pulled over and Googled, and they said, oh, you can ignore that. And I went back to the hotel, and they said, oh, no, you can't ignore that. You have to take it back to the dealer, which I did. And they couldn't figure it out either. Then after about half an hour, they found out the hood was not latched. But it couldn't figure out how to tell me that. All it could do is beep, beep, beep. And anyway, you get used to this. Everybody is, the projects are going to be the same. You'll have your best chance if you use the official recommended operating system, but even so, surprising obstacles will confront you. All right. So how many people need an ad code? All right, not very many. I'll do that at the break, which I'll do in about a half hour, rather than doing it right now in class. Everybody's going to get in, but there's no point making everybody wait for it. So let me just talk. I've got a little bit of motivational stuff. Then we'll take a break, and then I'll have, how many people already know how to pick locks? Oh, wow. That must be, is that Alan's class?
Yes.
Good. Well, all right. If you already know how to pick locks, then you can skip this part, or you can do it to get some points, or you can show the other people how to do it. It's good. Anyway, I am planning to have lockpicking. If you don't know how to pick locks, you should stick around and learn how to pick locks. It is a standard for penetration testers, and it is absolutely useful to give you a clue about security. This is how security and hacking work. You can't sell these locks in Germany. Nobody in Germany is stupid enough to use these locks. You lock the door in America, you walk away, you are just fooling yourself. Any 10-year-old kid could get in there if they just tried. The first time I read a description in Feynman's autobiography of how to pick a lock, I just bent a paperclip and picked a lock. It is the only reason people don't open locks is because they have never tried. So anyway, it's a very good, and that is true of many, many, many security boundaries, like your Windows password and everything else. It is like a TSA lock on your luggage. It will stop people unless they try, and then they can sail right through it. And so it's real important to discover the security measures that are actually difficult to get through and distinguish them from all these others, which Bruce Schneier calls security theater, is a good term for this. The TSA, searching your person for guns before you get on the airplane, is a fine example. the CSA has penetration tests internally where people try to sneak guns onto airplanes. And they had one about a year ago, and the results leaked. And the results were that 95% of the time the guns got through. And people freaked out and said, what's the point of this? I thought we were keeping the guns off the airplane. And they said, oh, you don't understand. A similar test 2 years earlier, 98% of the guns got through. So we've improved. And that's one way to look at it. But this is what Bruce Schneier pointed out as soon as the 9/11 happened. When the 9/11 terrorist incident occurred, Americans refused to ride airplanes because we do not have a British concept of courage and a stiff upper lip. Americans want to hide and have someone tell them it's safe when an intelligent adult knows that, of course, it is not safe. In Britain, they have no problem. Yes, the airplane might crash. Shut up and get on the airplane. Life is tough. You fall off the horse, get back on the horse. Yes, you might fall off again. Are you done worrying about that? Let's carry on. But Americans don't have this attitude. They want someone to lie to them and tell them they're safe when they aren't, and that's what the TSA does. They make a big theatrical show so you will feel safer and get on the plane. It is a covert bailout of the airline industry. In order to keep the airline industry from going broke, they pay a bunch of people to stand there and pretend to make you safe and they don't actually do anything. And that's a lot of what happens in security is security theater. And it has a purpose. It's just not the advertised purpose. It's not to actually prevent attacks. It is to pacify the scared children so they won't be upset. And that does create business success. Anyway, so I wanted to say a few things about Bitcoin. This is a talk I gave a few months ago. A lot of people got interested in Bitcoin, and you'll be doing some projects with blockchains in this class, although not much. But anyway, the technical details of Bitcoin are in this book. It's very good. And in the 50-foot blockchain is a very good financial analysis of cryptocurrencies and why you should not waste them. So if you plan to invest in cryptocurrencies, don't. They're all scams. They're just pyramid schemes. I used to be a financial professional. I was involved in the restoration of funds that were stolen by pyramid schemes, working under contract with the Federal Trade Commission. That's what I did, was pyramid schemes for years, and that's what these things are. Yeah?
Yeah, but what if I have a CPU just sitting there?
If your CPU is just sitting there and you want to mine some coin, you can do that, and you will spend more money for the electricity than you ever get back from the coins. The only way to make money is to go to a nation where you can steal electricity and get it for free, like China, where there are corrupt deals, or to put malware on somebody else's machine and waste their electricity. Those are the ways you actually make money. And even those, you make a lot less money than you used to. In fact, graphics cards were unavailable for about a year because all the Bitcoin miners are buying them. And now that the price has crashed, they've announced that it's all over. Their revenues from graphics cards have fallen to almost zero. For cryptocurrency mining, the boom is finally over. So I think the bloom has gone off the rose of this thing. But last year, there was quite a boom in it. So I'm teaching a cryptography class, although not this semester. And we do more of this. But anyway, so a blockchain is just a system where many people have copies of your data, and it is very easy to verify the accuracy of the chain. So the Bitcoin blockchain, millions of people have a copy of it, and they're all examining it to see if it has been altered. So the point of a blockchain is just a type of distributed database that is very hard to forge. And it's appropriate for something like a financial ledger of transactions, or for that matter, a log of events for security on a computer system would be a good use for this, where you just need to have a record that nobody can alter. And the reason that happens is because you have these blocks here, and maybe I'll open up this blockchain 10 link. Let me find it. It's in my old 141 class. All right. There we are. All right. So this is a simple online demonstration of how a blockchain works. And let me go to, there's a block. Here's the blockchain. All right. So this is the way it works. You have a block of data, and you have this nonce you can change. And so if you put data in here, like Sam has 10 coins, everything turns red, which you can't see on this projector, but it's not, this is now not a mined block. The hash starts with D053, and we'll be talking a lot about hash functions in the future, but Bitcoin uses SHA-256 of SHA-256, which is a perfectly fine hash function. So when you mine a block, you change the nonce. Part of it is variable. You change this randomly until you create a hash that starts with a lot of zeros. That's called mining. Now, this is a completely pointless exercise, just a guessing the numbers till you find the right random number, and the only point is proof of work. This means you had to try thousands and thousands of calculations to find the right number. But now that it's been mined, this block, anybody can verify it by calculating the hash and getting this number. And if you put data over here, Sam gives Sally 5 coins, all right, and then mine this one. This block includes the hash of the previous block in the data. So if you check this block and it adds up, that means all the previous ones have not been altered. And that's the point of this thing. With their mined, all you have to do is verify the latest block and see the expected hash value, and that means the entire chain is intact. So it is very easy for everyone to verify that the chain has not been altered. And if anybody tries to modify it, like back here, they try to change this number, then this will turn red and they'll all turn red. None of them will match anymore because this hash will change and that hash will change. All the hashes don't start with zeros anymore. So it's very easy to make sure that everybody has an accurate database. And the only thing special about blockchains that makes it different than, say, BitTorrent or Windows file shares or Dropbox or many other ways to share data is that everybody has write permission. Everybody can submit transactions and they will go in the blocks and get in there. So everybody can add data. Nobody can erase or alter anything in the past, but everybody can add data that gets included in the next blocks. And the thing that makes it secure is this proof of work. You make it so that every person that mines a block gets a reward, and the reward used to be very large, like $50,000. This happens every 10 minutes in the Bitcoin blockchain, and that is enough to cause people to build the fastest computers they can possibly build and to spend all their time calculating these blocks. That's Bitcoin mining, because it's a race, and whoever mines the block first gets all the money, and everybody else gets nothing. That's why if you try to mine Bitcoin on your home machine, you're totally wasting your time, because all the blocks are mined in China. And they have fast computers, and it's like running a race when you have a horse and they have a car, and you keep losing the race. You say, gee, if I keep trying, I'm going to win this race. And the answer is, no, you are not going to win that race, no matter how many times you try, if they've got a car and you've got a horse. Yeah?
Is there like a 50% attack on your money?
Oh, yes. Yes. So this is one of the many problems. So the reason Bitcoin is secure is that there's a financial incentive for the fastest computer in the world to actually mine blocks instead of trying to forge the blockchain. But if a faster computer existed, you could calculate the block so fast, go back and change it, and create a different fork and freeze out all the miners. You could be ahead. That's the 51% attack. If you actually control 51% of the mining, you can lie and outvote everybody else and steal the money. And China could do that at any moment. And what's even more scary is the entire concept of proof of work only works if there is only one blockchain in the world, and that's Bitcoin. There are now 1,000 other cryptocurrencies that are much smaller, much less popular, and are mined by much weaker systems. So if you're, say, an American trying to mine Bitcoins and you get too slow and you can't win, you could just go down to one of the other coins like Litecoin or Dogecoin or something, and all alone you might be 51% of the power, so you can just steal it all. And that has happened 4 times in the last 2 months. That people have just gone to perform 51% attacks on the secondary coins. The whole logic of having the fastest computer in the world make you secure only works for the one biggest blockchain in the world. All the others are not secure. So anyway, let me go back to here and see a few more general things. This is why there are 2 things going on here. The first thing was Bitcoin. The point of Bitcoin was a political stunt to subvert the political system by creating money that governments could not control. It's a political stunt, sort of like the Ron Paul, some people that wanted to go back to the gold standard. There's people that are very, very upset with the Federal Reserve and the United States printing money and all that jazz. And they want to make all that impossible by having money be something that no government can control. That is highly questionable. No reputable economic professional would recommend it. There's a reason we developed all these systems. But anyway, if you want that, you can do it. So that's what Bitcoin is. And it ended up being used primarily for many forms of financial crime. So this is what I said a few years ago. If you want to learn about Bitcoin, give your kids piggy banks, then 6 months later, smash them and take the money and laugh. Now they understand Bitcoin. That is the usual experience of anybody that invests in Bitcoin, because you buy it from exchanges, and the exchanges just steal your money. This happened over and over and over and over. And now the more I learn about them, the more they deserve contempt. But those are the public cryptocurrencies, and those are essentially only used for crime. Bitcoin was created and had no value until Silk Road came out, so you could buy heroin and guns and murder for hire and stuff. And then ransomware came out, so your machine would get infected and you had to pay Bitcoins to get it back. And so companies now archive Bitcoin, so they have it in case they have to pay ransom. And there are some countries like Argentina where the native currency is so terrible you're better off to put your money in Bitcoin, which is also money laundering. It's escaping their currency and doing what their government does not want you doing. The point of all this is to commit financial crimes, which is, by the way, a very strange situation because everything you do on Bitcoin is placed in a public blockchain that everybody can see. There is a permanent public record of every financial move in Bitcoin. So it's actually a really terrible place to commit crimes. But there was a period of time when the government did not understand how to read the Bitcoin ledger. This is how, whenever something new comes out, all the criminals flock to it, and they get away with it until the cops figure it out. And they figured, like Tor. Tor was fun until they figured out how to defeat Tor, and now the NSA can totally get into Tor. And then getting your Bitcoin. Mt. Gox was the main exchange. 7% of all the Bitcoins in the world were lost when it was either hacked or the owner just stole the money. So anyway, many exchanges went down. Bitfinex is particularly notable because they're holding up the Bitcoin price by printing money. They have a thing called Tether, which is fake money, and they printed, I think, 500 million of them last month to pump up the Bitcoin price with fake dollars that aren't real dollars, which is why the price moves. Many Bitcoin exchanges have gone down and been stolen. And here's the price history up through the end of last year. So Bitcoin was worth nothing. Then around 2014, it went up to $300 because of Silk Road. And then in the second half of last year, it went all the way up to $20,000 for no reason at all. And this is a well-known financial problem called a bubble. When something starts going up, people buy more just because it's going up, not because it's actually worth anymore. There was nothing you could do in November that you couldn't do in January that made it suddenly worth 20 times as much. It was just a bubble. And there have been lots of bubbles. Here's Bitcoin versus the tech bubble. The famous tech bubble was much slower, the one around year 2000 and 2001 when everybody jumped on the internet. But there have been bubbles like this before. I mean, I thought because of the last election and the Bitcoin bubble that there might be a paroxysm of stupidity in the human race that was unparalleled in our history, but it's not unparalleled. Humans have been this stupid before, in particular in the 1600s. Somebody brought tulips to Holland, I think, and nobody had ever seen tulips, so they said, gee, tulips are pretty, and then they said, I'll pay more for that bulb, I'll pay more for that bulb, and the bulb price went up until the price of a single tulip bulb was more than a mansion, a fashionable mansion, like whatever millions of dollars would have been at the time. And in fact, if you rate it, it grew exactly as fast as the Bitcoin bubble. And what happens is it rises, and there comes a point when everyone says, wait a minute, I'm paying $1 million for a tulip bulb, this can't be right. And then they all try to sell, and it plummets back down. Yeah.
How do you short Bitcoin?
There are a lot of people, yes, shorting Bitcoin would be a logical thing if you really thought you knew it was going to fall. And there are several serious financial markets offering Bitcoin futures, and they're trying to get them on the real stock exchanges, and they were just rejected again last week. Many people saw this rise and said, oh my God, we could all get rich. The more sober financial professionals are used to this. This is what's called a high-risk product, where the variance is a lot. But there are often times when something is going up and you say, gee, if only I'd known. Yeah, that's the way it works. But if you actually invest, you won't happen to buy at the right time. Anyway, so now Bitcoin has fallen down to about 1/4 of the price. Seems to be settling around $5,000 or $6,000, where it's sitting, going pretty much nowhere these days. Yeah. Yeah, Venezuela is a very interesting case. Maduro, their leader seems to be a nut, and they can't make a financial policy that actually works, so he decided to issue a cryptocurrency, and he just went on the latest fashionable thing, which is usually what people do. See, the real point of this is to steal people, steal money from people, and so what you do is you have some kind of razzle-dazzle to distract them while you pick their pocket. So cryptocurrencies are always mind-bogglingly complicated. They always have 10 new bizarre features like Lightning Network and double layers of obfuscation and futures and derivatives to make it more and more baffling so that you don't know what they're talking about while they pick your pocket. And so the latest thing is tethered cryptocurrency, which is a cryptocurrency that is not sold on the open market, but is tied to $1 or something, supposedly equal to $1 in value. This makes no sense at all. And it is used by the Bitfinex exchange to create a fake dollar called Tether, which they use to artificially pump up the Bitcoin price. So every time Bitcoin starts falling down to where it belongs, like $300, they print another 500 million fake dollars, buy Bitcoin with that, and call the price equal to a high dollar price again. They've been going on for years. The price is totally manipulated and fake. And so that's what the Maduro did. He printed something, made something called the Petro, and he tied it to a real currency, which doesn't make any sense, but it's just an attempt to fool people, make them think it's somehow equal to a real dollar when it isn't. It's, you know, and this is what happens to real people. If you happen to be one of the enthusiasts that got on something which suddenly became fashionable, you make a lot of money. If you jump on something after you see it on the news, you're always too late. Then you're one of the suckers that get bled. That's how pyramid schemes work. The original founders get some money. All the followers are the sheep that get fleeced. Anyway, so Ethereum is a different blockchain that lets you run programs on the blockchain. And so this is what CryptoKitties are. CryptoKitties was the #1 most popular program on Ethereum. But Ethereum lets you run a program that runs 1 million copies of this program will run on everybody's machine that's running the Ethereum blockchain. So what you have done is you have managed to make a processor 1 million times slower. Now it has to do every calculation 1 million times for no apparent reason. But the point, again, is to evade the law. The point was to create distributed companies that do not live in any geographic location and then claim that companies are exempt from all laws. That was the point. All these things, the obvious immediate financial application is to commit crimes. And the point of that one was the DAO. And the DAO, this is, by the way, the list of who's been doing the Bitcoin mining. And like I say, 81% of all the mining in the world happens in China. There were 10 people are in charge of it. So those 10 people could totally control everything about Bitcoin. The whole logic of Bitcoin requires that nobody can get up to 51% control of the blockchain. And there is a much, this is actually a well-known computer science problem to protect you against what's called the Byzantine generals attack. If you have a bunch of people and they're all backstabbing traders, they would all gladly betray each other for $1, how do you still get anything done? And that's probably an accurate assessment of, say, international finance. So the goal of Bitcoin and any other system is to make a system, even when everybody has no loyalty to anybody, they still can't cheat. And the general solution to this is a consensus protocol that means that they would have to have more than 1/3 of all the people involved to conspire to trick you. That's the general level at which you could get away with forming a group and backstabbing the others. So that's the best you can do. And that would be the 33% attack. So you really don't want, in order for Bitcoin to actually work and be trustworthy, no single organization should have control of more than 1/3 of the power. Then it would be logically protecting you from conspiracies to defraud. And in that regard, it's obviously a monumental failure. Another thing that people got upset about last year was the rate at which Bitcoin was growing. It was growing so fast, they said it was going to use up all the power in the world. And so you could easily predict that by the year 2022, it would use up all the power on Earth. And so this news article came out and I said, this is really stupid. I lived through previous bubbles like the tech bubble. In the tech bubble, people took the price of your internet stock in 1997 and 1998 and 1999 and they said, we're going to get rich, rich, rich. And, you know, if you're not like 6 years old and you've actually been around the block, you know, all this means is it's not going to keep going up. But I put this up and I said, well, that should be the end of this. And my friends on Twitter said, oh my God, I'm scared. What's going to happen? The government's going to crash. And I said, you don't get it. Well, maybe this one would get you. We'll just take it out to the year 2090 until it consumes all the energy in the whole universe. All the energy in the sun, all the energy in the galaxy. This is the entire mass energy of the universe will all be used up by Bitcoin mining in the year 2100. And people on Twitter said, oh my God, we're doomed. Like, dude, have you ever heard of this concept called sarcasm? I mean, when you see a graph like that, you're supposed to say, well, you know, I guess you can't take this much data and extrapolate it way the hell out there with a straight line. And of course, right after this, you went, but you know, anyway, of course, none of that would happen. But people do fall for this stuff. So I mentioned Ethereum lets you run programs on the blockchain called smart contracts, and they're good, clean, fun, and you'll play with them a bit in this class. Anyway, so the thing I wanted to say is the public cryptocurrencies that are publicly traded that people invest in are all pretty much scams and tricks and political stunts. But the blockchain itself has some value as a business tool to synchronize data among computer networks. And every major company, every major computer company, and every major bank is now developing blockchains. And in particular, one that IBM is pushing a lot is Hyperledger, and it's very easy to start using Hyperledger. So soon, you will be using blockchains at your business the same way you use distributed databases and Excel spreadsheets and Word documents and PDF files. Blockchains will be another data structure you're using, and we should all get used to them. So we'll do a few projects in it. But that's got not much to do with these public cryptocurrencies, which are just a sort of political stunt used by the early adopters of blockchains. but everybody and their brother is now developing blockchains. And so you'll do a couple projects in here about them in this class. If you go down to the project here, we'll do a bit of quantum computing also. And I'm hoping to have some post-quantum cryptography here. I'm still working on that, but I did find some versions of it that are not too bad. But we'll do simple blockchains and Hyperledger, and I'll probably have some other stuff here. Hyperledger is very nice, and you will see it's a way to make a business structure that keeps track of data for you to synchronize data among your business locations and your vendors and suppliers and such. And it looks actually kind of like a Microsoft Windows domain controller and a Cross Forest Trust and all the other servers you have in a Microsoft Windows domain, because it's solving the same kind of thing. And one of my students, when I taught this over the summer in Illinois, said he was working for Lockheed Martin, and they were developing a Hyperledger-based blockchain to synchronize their suppliers. Because if you build something complicated like a military airplane, you've got parts from this country and parts from that country and software from this country, or commercial airplane or something, and all these people make promises and then they don't really deliver the stuff on time and it has to go back, and then they argue, well, I shipped it but you didn't get it. And it turns out that you really wish there was a way we could have a really clear record of exactly what did you promise, exactly where did it get, so everybody is all on the same page about this. And they said a blockchain is actually a pretty good solution for that. But not a public blockchain with proof of work, but a private blockchain run by one company where they control the mining and they don't let everybody join. They just have their company and their partner locations join and then all cooperate just to keep a clear record so that we don't have to argue about who forged the documents. So anyway, I see we're just about 10 minutes to the hour. I think that's all I wanted to say about that on my class. Let's take a 10-minute break. If you need an ad code, come up and get them. And at 7, I'm just going to turn on the lights and have people do lockpicking, and that's all we're going to do today. Although I will go up to the lab after this. If anybody hasn't done the 214 lab, you can see it, and you can work up there, but most people prefer to work at home on their projects. So let's take a 10-minute break, and I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll bring up the ad codes here. So if you need one.
Where do you put this?
Oh, yeah, let's make a pile of these. Yeah, if you've got those papers to turn in, just make a pile of them here. Just that one here. Yeah. You can take off, or if you want to get points for it in this class, you should pick a lock to prove you can do it. But you can also just take off. All right, let me stop the recording.